Diamond B Sports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
In 1535, French explorer Jacques Cartier, in his desire to discover a northwest passage to India, advanced into the St. Lawrence River to what is now the site of the great city of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. French is still the language here, and the atmosphere is one of classic structures characteristic of the 17th and 18th century. But when it comes to sports, Montreal is strictly 20th century. The Olympics in '76, baseball's Expos, the Canadian Hockey Club, and the most elaborate motorsports facility in all of Canada, Saint-Air Superspeedway. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans, and today from Saint-Air we bring you a rather historic day in the annals of stock car racing. Now usually the only way rival organizations get together in sports is under a court order, but today 3 regional stock car sanctioning bodies all come together under a common banner. It's called the Stock Car Connection, and they will be producing 6 events this season, 3 of which we'll be bringing you. Now first of all, let's talk about the American Speed Association, the ASA, founded in the late 60s by Rex Robbins, dedicated to the advancement of short-track stock car racing throughout the Midwest. And he has succeeded phenomenally under an imaginative set of rules that have brought these cars back to looking more like stock cars, yet still riding on sophisticated chassis with an interesting engine combination we'll talk about a bit later. And the ASA has brought us some tremendous talent, men like Rusty Wallace, Bob Seneker, and the man that wheels this car, Dick Trickle. Now, for more on the Stock Car Connection, here's Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, the next sanctioning body is called ACT, American Canadian Tour. And they're kind of the local boys of the group. They've been running in this area since 1979 when Tom Curley got them started in the New England and Eastern Canada area. And they've come in here with a little bit of a disadvantage. Their old cars were totally different, and they were required to build brand new automobiles for the Stock Car Connection, as is the example of this beautiful number 48 Buick LeSabre being driven by 4-time champion Robbie Crouch. But they do have a little bit of an advantage to offset that. They are the only one of this bunch that has ever run here at Saint-Air. Now we've got another group of guys that have come from a long, long way away. And for more on them, let's go to Steve.
Travel they have, Brock, as much as 40 hours. They're the drivers and teams of the organization called All Pro. They have come from Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and like the 31 Buick LeSabre car of Steve Grissom, from the state of Alabama. Now these men have had to make very few changes to their automobiles because back in 1981, when Bob Harmon formed All Pro, he pretty well adapted the rules of the ASA that were already in place. Now let's talk about today's racing format. First of all, we'll see 2 very important qualifying races for next weekend's Molson 400, which we will bring you from right here in Saint-Air. I say they're important because the purses are so large they equal a usual main event. Now, most importantly today, we'll be seeing the first ever Showdown of Champions. All 3 sanctioning bodies have put forth their top points earners from last season, 18 in all, to run for $35,000 and what can be a very difficult tri-oval racetrack.
Well, Steve, they're lined up and ready to go for the first of those 2 qualifying races you talked about. And on the pole, Kent Stauffer from ASA in the number 90 car. He's out of Elyria, Ohio. And next to him, representing All Pro, is Mickey Gibbs out of Glencoe, Alabama. Now, he had a year layoff, Steve, and now he's back in action.
That's right. He won back in 1985, though. On the inside of row number 2 is Russ Erlin, representing the American Speed Association, but yet from London, Ontario. He's been racing in the Midwest. That's a Buick LeSabre. He's a rookie. Outside of row number 2 is the first car and driver representing the ACT Association. That's Mike Berry, number 21. He's from Vermont, and he's strapped into a Buick.
Well, Steve, on the inside of the 3rd row is a real veteran of this kind of racing, Harold Fair out of Detroit, Michigan, representing the ASA. He finished 9th in ASA points last year. Back looking for more again. On the outside of the 3rd row, another American Speed Association pro, Gene Harsh, Sharonville, Ohio. Gene is on board a Chevrolet Camaro.
ACT has another representative on the inside of row number 4. This is the Camaro driven by Yvonne Bédard. Now, as we said earlier, the ACT drivers have all brand new cars, and many are testing them today for the first time. In fact, here's an ACT driver having problems even before he gets to the grid. This is the Camaro of Barry McRae. The hood is up midway between the pits and the racetrack, and they're working on the ignition system, Brock.
Right, Steve. Barney McRae's car, Colchester, Vermont, and that's an unfortunate turn of events because these guys have come up here, as you say, really keyed up. On the inside of row 5, Jean-Paul Cabana. Now, he is a real regular in ACT, 158 starts, 16 feature wins over his long career. Beside him on the outside of row 5 is Milt Wright in the 03 Camaro from Hardwick, Vermont, another ACT regular. And starting on the inside of row 6, yet another ACT driver, Jeff Stevens, Kennebuck, Maine, in a Camaro, a regular on the ACT circuit. And beside him, in a brand new Buick, beautiful car, the number 9 car, Paul Richardson, Georgetown, Massachusetts, yet another American-Canadian Tour driver. So as these guys get ready to go, work continues on the McRae cars. Steve is back there with Barney.
Well, Barney, you got just a few minutes to get this car out on the grid. What's the problem?
Well, I believe it's the distributor or the coil or something. We've changed every ignition part we have in the car, so I don't understand. Can't everything be bad?
Gotta be frustrating for you strapped into this thing. You'd like to be out there giving them a hand if you could.
Yeah, well, you know, I was just out there a minute ago, but I had to get in here. We're going to have to start this thing real soon, and if she runs, I got to be ready.
Okay, hope to see you up there.
Thank you.
Well, Steve, the clock is ticking down for McRae and his crew because the engines have been running out there in pit row, and they're going to wave these cars off at any moment for this 25-lap qualifier.
And if Barney is not out there, Brock, he will not be with us next week when we bring you coverage of the Molson 400, because that is what this event is all about. The top 8 finishers in this qualifier and the one to follow are guaranteed a spot in that mega buck race.
25 top laps on this famed tri-oval coming up.
We're just about ready for the first ever Stock Car Connection qualifying race for that Molson 400. You know, for 3 organizations to come together, they had to agree on a lot of things, including engine regulations. Earlier, Brock Yates took a look at the engine combination they're running in these cars.
If there's one consistent element in the Stock Car Connection, it's the engines. Now, this particular engine is out of Kent Stauffer's Ford Thunderbird, and of course it is a Ford block. Now, the rules say that they have to be American-produced, production-based V8 engines. Now, for the most part, they're small block, either GM or Ford engines, this one, of course, being a Ford. The displacement limit on all the engines, 358 cubic inches. That's the maximum. A spec carburetor, which is a Holley 600 CFM, not on this particular engine, but that's where it belongs, of course. And 9-to-1 compression ratio. Those are the 3 consistent elements that make all these engines equal. The cars, slight weight differentials between them by class, but the engines, all the same.
And all 3 of these organizations, Brock, as you know, will continue to run the regular regional series, but they come together 6 times a year under that common banner called the Stock Car Connection. The first race, of course, here in Montreal. Then they'll move on to Queen City Speedway in Cincinnati. We will be bringing you that action. Then on to Pennsylvania International Raceway in Nazareth and the Birmingham International Raceway in Birmingham.
The Milwaukee State Fair Mile in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, another place. And then we'll bring you the Nashville Motor Speedway Stock Car Connection race at the end of the season. That should be a real showdown because these guys will really have their act together by then, Steve.
Indeed they will. There's 11 cars. There were supposed to have been 12, but you saw the problems with the Barney McRae car, and they're coming down for a green flag. The first ever Stock Car Connection race is underway.
On the pole, the blue and white number 90 Thunderbird of Kent Stauffer. On the outside, that black number 1 headed for the green flag. It's out, Steve.
It is indeed, and on the outside it is Mickey Gibbs moving into the first position. Apparently a year off hasn't hurt that young man. Look at him go. He's already got a couple of car lengths on Stauffer.
So it could be All-Pro leading the first lap here at San Air in the first ever Stock Car Connection contest. Around and sweeping, very tight, decreasing radius turn number 3 on this tri-oval. Here comes Gibbs down to complete the first lap. Right behind him, Kent Stauffer. So it's an All-Pro leader in the first ever race.
And here they come to that very tricky turn number 1, banked at 5.5 degrees. And in the back of the pack, John Paul Cabana, the 5A car, takes over the 7th position from Gene Harsh, the 04 car, red, white, and blue machine.
Well, Steve, of course, Jean-Paul, a local favorite from right here in the Montreal area in front of his French-Canadian fans, doing his best as we complete another lap. And leader still, Mickey Gibbs in the black number 1.
Great race, Brock, here for the 4th position. The 81 car, the blue and red machine on the inside going into turn 1. That is Harold Fair, American Speed Association. And side by side behind him, the 21 car on the outside, the red machine. That is Mike Berry. Now moving inside Berry into the 5th spot is the number 8 car of Yvon Bedard, the American Canadian Tour machine.
Right. Here they come. Fair leads us down into that tight turn number 3 in that blue and red Thunderbird number 81. Harold Fair, as we said, a real veteran of this kind of short track competition. Going to use a lot of brakes in this 25-lap race, the drivers say, Steve. This is a very difficult little tri-oval, just under a mile in length, and 2 very tight corners and 1 dogleg at the back, which they can take almost flat out.
That's right, and here you see the 2nd and 3rd place runners right there. 90 Ken Stoffer, who started on the pole, and 91 Russ Erlin behind him, both cars from the ASA. Mickey Gibbs is still on the point, though, leading it.
He sure is, as you get this straightaway shot. There is the leader, the black number 1 car, Mickey Gibbs. Right behind him, Ken Stoffer, trying to get underneath him a little bit in that dogleg, and in the 3rd spot, that's Russ Erlin. Good race for the lead. There is the race for 6. Mike Berry, Jean-Paul Cabana in the 7th spot in that blue and white number 5. And Cabana dives underneath him, coming off turn number 3. Challenges for that spot. Will he hold on to it as they get into turn 1? No. Look at that. Mike Berry holds him off on the high side. Really a 2-lane racetrack there, Steve, and most of the guys say it's really only run 1 groove there. Mike Berry disproved that immediately.
Well, we've got very cool weather, and the track is responding almost anywhere these guys want to run on it. Here, coming right into your living room, is the leader, Mickey Gibbs, and still behind him, running in the same order they have all race long, is 90 Ken Stoffer and 91 Russ Erlin. Now, here is Mickey Gibbs. We said he took a year off to pay attention to the family business, but back in '85, he won one of the toughest all-pro races down south. So everybody knows that he comes in with some tremendous credentials and is proving it here. Now, bear in mind, you got to finish in the top 8 if you're going to be in the Molson 400, and none of the cars we see here are involved later in our feature race today, the Showdown of Champions.
Well, look at this, Steve. Jean-Paul Cabana still trying Mike Berry on the low side as they go down the front straightaway. The 6th place battle continues, but Mike Berry holds off Cabana. Now, here they go into that dogleg in the back part of the track. You can almost run it flat out. You have to lift just a little bit right there. But Cabana cannot make up ground as we watch Gibbs come off turn number 3 to lead it 1 more lap.
And in some ways, Brock, this is a last chance qualifier for the big race. But these cars, the top 8, the transport, will not necessarily tag on the back. In fact, the winner will go into the 6th place on that grid through an interesting set of qualifying regulations. That 6th place has been left open for the man that wins this qualifier. Of course, most of the prime spots in that Molson 400 will be occupied by the cars we'll be seeing later on in the Showdown of Champions. 18 machines there.
All right, there is a challenge for the lead. Here comes Stoffer diving underneath Gibbs into turn number 1, and he will take the lead. In fact, Russ Erlin sneaks by to take over 2nd, so Gibbs falters ever so slightly going into turn 1 and falls back to 3rd. And here comes Cabana again.
Jean-Paul Cabana has taken over the 6th position from Mike Berry. 2 ACT cars just battling out back there now for 6th and 7th. And look at Cabana drive away. And I guarantee that pleases the big Canadian contingent here, Rock. The man has been racing 30 years and has announced that this will be his last season.
Right. So everybody from the Montreal area cheering on Jean-Paul as we watch Ken Stoffer now pull away. Mickey Gibbs apparently is having some problems. Who's to know, Steve? But he's fallen well back behind Erlin and Stoffer, who now lead it. Here comes Gibbs in that black number 1 car, now being challenged by Harold Fair in the number 81 Thunderbird. So here comes Fair right in behind Mickey Gibbs, and it looks as if Gibbs is having some problems because look at Fair moving right in behind him as they head into the dogleg in that blue and red number 81 Thunderbird. Here comes Spare closing in on Gibbs down the short chute toward turn number 3. I wonder, Steve, do you think Gibbs is running out of brakes?
That could be, Brock, because on this kind of a racetrack, if your brakes start to go away, you can't drive as deep into the turns as you were before. Here you see Harold Fair currently in that 4th spot. Mickey Gibbs, who led it in the black number 1 car, has dropped back in there, and here comes Fair on the inside, but no, Mickey's got enough to stave him off.
That's right. And here's the old Ford car of Gene Harsh kind of cruising through the pit, Steve. He doesn't look like he's going to stop. Maybe he just checked in to see if everybody's paying attention to his pit or whatever, but he's back out again, but running slowly.
Well, if he gets any slower out on the track, I think we may see the yellow flag out. Now, this is a real pity for Gene Harsh, who's having problems because he was running in that 8th and final transfer spot. You just saw him on the back stretch. I believe, Brock, we're going to see a caution flag, which is not going to be good news for number 90, Kent Stopper, who's leading this thing. That is going to allow the cars behind him to close up right on his bumper in typical stock car fashion.
Right, Steve. He was squeezing out a little bit of an advantage over Russ Erlin there, but now Erlin will drop right in behind his bumper as the caution flag comes out. That is no doubt for this particular automobile of Gene Harsh, parked on the racing surface on the back straightaway here at Sanair. Certainly an unsafe situation. He's out for the day and won't transfer to the big event. We'll be back for more from Sanair following this. One of the standard features of the Quebec landscape are church spires. Every one of these small villages has a beautiful church on its landscape. And this one at Saint-Pie on the edge of the Black River, just down the road from the Sanair racetrack. Now here's a man who's not doing any sightseeing. That is short track great Dick Trickle. Now he is getting his silver bullet, number 99, ready for the showdown of champions. 18 guys from the 3 associations who will race later in the show. But right now, Kent Stouffer, Russ Erlin and company, still under caution, are trying to get qualified for next week's Molson 400, a totally different event. We're under caution still. Let's go to Steve.
Ordinarily, when you run an 8th and fall out of the race, it doesn't cost you quite as much as it will today for Gene Harsh. As you well know, Gene, that was the final qualifying position for the Molson 400.
Yeah, we really wanted to make it. We weren't really pushing to hold 8th, but we didn't want to push to run 7th because whether you start second last or last, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
What happened to the automobile?
I think the engine let loose on it. The oil pressure went down, temperature went up, and everything just started smoking and vibrating.
Okay, sorry to see you out of it.
Thank you.
Tough break for Gene Harsh as his symptoms are pretty evident that he lost a whole lot of motor. As you can see, the drive belts are gone, smoke coming out of the breathers, so he's finished. But it looks as if that car the racetrack is clear, and I think we're going to get a green here, Steve.
We are indeed, Brock, and let me remind everyone, those yellow laps did not count. They'll run 25 under green, and it is Kent Stopper, car number 90, leading them down into turn 1. And look at Harold Fair make a move. Harold Fair, that red and blue car, has moved into 3rd position. Mickey Gibbs back into 2nd.
And look at that white Camaro of Ivan Bedar move into the 3rd spot. And here's the big loser, Steve, the number 91 car of Russ Erlin. Remember, riding in 3rd spot, he has obviously encountered problems on the restart and has fallen well back.
Well, except for the leader, things have certainly changed. Number 90, Kent Stopper, is still up front. But Mickey Gibbs, who led earlier, the black car right there, number 1, has moved into the 2nd spot. The French-Canadian, the number 8 car, Yvon Bedard from ACT, he's in the 3rd spot. And Harold Fair into 4th, the 81 red and blue machine.
Well, look at Stouffer moving out in that number 90 Thunderbird. He is, here comes Erlin into the pits, obviously having problems out of ASA. He is finished for the day and finished also, unfortunately, for a run in the Molson 400 next week. So a very tough race. He must have broken something on the restart. The number 90 Thunderbird of Kent Stouffer continues to lead it. It's Harold Fair in the blue and red number 81 Thunderbird challenges and takes over 3rd spot from Ivan Bedar, Steve.
He does, and the 5A car, veteran Jean-Paul Cabana, has now moved into the 5th position. In fact, he's challenging for the 4th spot.
He is, as they come down low through turn number 3. Here comes Cabana in that blue and white 5A. He's got the inside line of Bedar going into turn 1. He should take it. Look at this, though. Bedar stays high, but cannot hold off Cabana. So Cabana moves into that 5th spot.
I think it was Beynard sliding up a little high there that opened the door for Jean-Paul Cabana. So here he is, certainly the favorite among the long-time fans in this part of the country. Jean-Paul Cabana, over 30 years of experience. There's Mickey Gibbs and Harold Fair. They are running second and third, respectively.
Right. Harold Fair has moved up and now starting to challenge Mickey Gibbs. Remember, Mickey led it for a while, then fell all the way back to third place, and under the caution, when Erlin fell out, moved back to the second. So he's been kind of up among the leaders all day. Fair, though, started back in the pack and has moved steadily through. Now, it looks as if Gibbs has responded to that challenge a little bit and has moved out. But Fair seems a little quicker in the corners. Mickey Gibbs, as they go into the last lap, has now got only 2 more corners to hold off Harold Fair. Fair, down low, heading toward the dog leg. He's got the inside line. Will he do it? Yes, Fair up nose to nose through the dog leg. Mickey Gibbs in the black number 1 on the outside. Fair has the line into turn number 3. Here comes your winner, number 90, Kent Stauffer. The checkered flag for him. And now the race for second. Mickey Gibbs holds off Harold Fair to take the second spot.
Boy, Harold never gave up there. He moved to the inside to try to pass him just a few yards before the finish line, but not quite enough muscle. And there, cooling it down, is the man who, by virtue of that checkered flag, picks up a nice paycheck. But more importantly to Kent Stauffer, he will start 6th on the grid for next week's Molson 400. Well, with the completion of that first qualifier, 8 more spots have been filled in the Molson 400 for next week. Kent Stauffer won a great race between Mickey Gibbs and Harold Fair. Milt Wright picks up that final transfer spot. Right now, let's go to Brock with the winner.
With Kent Stauffer, who just won it going away, but it was a little bit tight at the beginning, right?
Yeah, everybody was a little anxious, and I think they all wanted to stay up front as long as they could, so, you know, it all turned out well. I think everybody kept their head and did a good job.
You worked on Gibbs pretty hard, finally got him look like under braking going into turn 1. Is that how it worked, Kent?
Yeah, he was going in hard trying to stay ahead of me, and one time I was waiting for him, and he went in just a little too hard, and I was able to get underneath him, and that's when I got by him.
He lost a bunch of ground. He fell back to third, actually. He must have gotten a little high when you got underneath him.
Yeah, if you get out into the second lane, it's pretty slippery.
And now let's go to Steve with the second place finisher.
Thank you, Brock. Well, so far for this man, Mickey Gibbs, that long ride up from the south has paid off. A nice second-place finish, but I'll tell you, Harold Fair was right on you.
Yeah, he was right back there. We had a couple of things going wrong. We got a 180-degree motor in here, which vibrates more than a standard 9-to-1, and it's cracked the fitting coming out of our oil pan, and we were running in oil out there. It was just covered the whole bottom of our car up, and we've had a little brake problem all morning. About got that straightened out, but I think running in the oil is what got us so loose there.
You think you could have won it had it not been for that problem?
Yeah, the car felt good for about the first 4 laps, and then I guess that's when the oil pan started leaking so bad. When the oil got real hot, it started coming out more, and then the car just real loose all day from then on, and, you know, just hang on to it then.
Well, fortunately, and thanks to big oil pans, you had enough oil to finish the race.
Yeah, thankful for that. I watched the oil temperature and the oil pressure real close and made sure we didn't run out. But
nice run.
Thank you.
Well, Steve, we're ready to go for the second 25-lap qualifier here at Santair. Now, the winner of this event will start right next to Stauffer in the 7th slot on that grid. And on the pole here, there's a recognizable name, Kenny Wallace, brother of Rusty Wallace, younger brother from St. Louis, Rookie of the Year in the ASA last year.
And on the outside is this beautiful, brand-new Thunderbird of Bobby Donner. He's an ASA runner from Franklin, Wisconsin. Just a nicely turned-out race car.
Right, Steve. Finished 8th in the standings last year. Tom Harrington, another ASA driver from Henderson, Tennessee. He will start in the 3rd spot.
And here's a guy to look out for on the outside of row number 2. This is Ted Musgrave. Now, they call him a rookie in ASA, but this Wisconsin shoe has been racing all over the Midwest in all forms of competition. He'll be tough.
He will be indeed. The number 92 car, Peter Gibbons of Stouffville, Ontario, ASA. His home track up in Cayuga, where he runs a whole lot. Very experienced driver. He's in a Buick, as is Kevin Lepage from Algonquin, Maine. So a pair of Buicks in that row.
And here's a Chevrolet. It's on the inside of row number 4. That is J. Michael Kurkowski from Ohio, formerly known as Muttley, but he's cleaning up his PR image a bit. J. Michael now.
Yes, sir. Call him J. Michael. Outside of him, in another Camaro, is Dan Perez. He is an ACT driver, American Canadian Tour, that stands for, out of Tampa, Florida, as is Robbie Krautz, the champion.
That's right, Brock. And inside of row number 5, this is another Buick machine. Carl Roby from Candia, New Hampshire. The first time, like all the ACT drivers, he's used that 9-to-1 motor. And alongside him is Larry Harris. Harris with an ASA-based Camaro from Indianapolis.
And Steve, starting in the scratch position, Bob Ailes, St. Johnsbury, Vermont. He'll be in the 11th spot at the back of the grid here in this 25-lap qualifier. Remember now, 8 cars transfer to the Molson 400. On the pole, the number 36 Buick of Kenny Wallace, and on the outside pole in the front row, that beautiful number 79 Thunderbird of Bobby Dotter, a brand new automobile with some very, very interesting technical features. Earlier, Steve had a chance to look at this 79 Bird.
In that the rear end of these stock cars is so much higher than the nose of the car behind. In the event of a rear-end collision, the radiator is the most vulnerable component. But look what Bobby Dotter has done in his beautiful new Thunderbird. He's located the radiator as low as possible in the car and tilted it way forward. Now this gives the front end a lower center of gravity and also reduces the chance of that radiator being nailed in a minor collision. And I said, what about cooling? Well, Bobby reminded me that heat rises and pulls cool air through that radiator. No problem whatsoever. Now, it looks like something's almost missing here. Well, in fact, it is. There's no fan on the front of this motor. And the fan wouldn't do any good anyway as far away as the radiator is. Plus, to turn a fan takes a little bit of horsepower, so there's even a performance gain here.
All right, we're on the pace lap as they come down the short chute toward turn number 3. Number 36 Buick of Kenny Wallace leads them. Bobby Dotter on the outside. We just had a look at that beautiful car. Pace car off. I would think we're going to get a green flag here, Steve. They're formed up pretty well. Here comes Wallace on the throttle.
All 11 drivers behaving beautifully. Nobody attempting to jump the start. Side by side, we go into turn number 1 on the inside. The Rookie of the Year in ASA. That is Wallace in the 36 Buick. And falling in behind him, no contact in turn 1. Good driving. And, of course, that's Bobby Dotter in the Thunderbird we talked about.
Right. Tom Harrington, another ASA driver in the Chevrolet Camaro, bringing up in the 3rd spot. Here they come down into turn number 3. And, yes, look at this, Musgrave. Ted Musgrave in the 97 car moves up into that 3rd spot.
They're racing everywhere, Brock. For the 7th spot, the number 2 car of J. Michael Kurkowski and the 20 machine driven by Dan Perez. They're side by side.
And look at Musgrave on the outside, challenging Dotter in that red and white number 79 Thunderbird. Here comes Musgrave riding high onto the dog leg, and he will take over the 2nd spot. Dotter in the 79 car goes high in turn number 3 and will lose another position to Tom Harrington in the number 1 Camaro. So Dotter falling back, Musgrave and Harrington charging, Steve.
Indeed, Brock, and I'll tell you, they're not through with Dotter yet. The 92 car, Peter Gibbons, he has now set his sights on Dotter on the inside. He's got him. It is Gibbons moving into the 4th spot.
Well, there's no question, Steve, that Dotter's got big problems. He started on the outside of the front row, a brand new car, an excellent running car, and an experienced driver, and he just is not behaving properly. So he's got trouble. But right now, up front, Kenny Wallace, right behind him, Ted Musgrave, Tom Harrington in the blue and white number 1 Camaro, and right behind him, Peter Gibbons in that 92 Camaro. Here comes Dotter, falling back even farther. So the leaders are stretching it out.
You know what, Brock, though, with a brand new race car like that, I think Bobby Dotter is not taking any chances of getting into the fence or another competitor. If they start challenging him when he drops back to say 8, he'll fight for it. Because, and we have got a spin coming out of turn number 3.
That is the number 20 car of Dan Perez, an American-Canadian Tour driver. Lost it in that decreasing radius, turn number 3, looped it and backed it into the fence on the inside. So that'll bring out a caution flag. Here it is, the yellow out. Remember now, these laps do not count. We're going to have 25 racing laps under green.
This car driven by Dan Perez, the number 20 machine, is the oldest car on the grounds, Brock. It's been all reskinned with a fiberglass body, but fortunately it had the steel body like they ran in ACT competition. Now, we didn't expect to see any pit stops in a short race, but taking advantage of the yellow here is Bobby Dotter. He's got that Thunderbird in for right side rubber, Brock, at least right side.
Well, Steve, these guys still haven't got the right combination down on tires. They've got a couple of different compounds to work with, but the stagger, the diameter of the tires, is critical here. Dotter obviously not pleased with his combination.
Not on any corner of the automobile because the Jackman now comes around. They're looking at the left side as well. You have to wonder if this long stop isn't going to cost Bobby Dotter a shot at qualifying.
That fountain Mountain is in the center of the city of Montreal, right next to the Hotel de Ville, as they call it, or we would call it the City Hall. 450 years of history of this great city along the St. Lawrence River. Meanwhile, though, at Sanair, we're getting ready for more racing, Steve.
And here's some guys that hope to make history. That's the crew for Steve Grissom. Their Buick machine has to be considered the top-rated car coming out of All-Pro. They'll meet with 17 others later today in the Showdown of Champions, the best from 3 regional stock car organizations, all getting together for a $10,000 to the winner's shootout. Well, here in this second and final qualifying race for the Molson 400, Kenny Wallace, the Rookie of the Year last year from ASA, continues to lead in the orange and red number 36 car. And look at this on the inside. Ted Musgrove, who they call a rookie, and that's in quotes. The 97 car, Brock, trying to make the move on the inside.
He's got the line down into turn number 3, Steve, but Wallace rides it high. They come out together, but look, I think Musgrave's going to take it. Into turn number 1, Musgrave outbrakes and outmuscles Kenny Wallace to take the lead here in the second 25-lap qualifier. So this guy, as you say, he's no rookie. From Wisconsin, Musgrave, a long short track history. You know, among these drivers, Steve, we've got some of the very finest short track drivers in the entire United States. They run on thirds, half-mile, quarter-mile asphalt tracks. Sanair is, of course, a big long track for them.
Now, you remember Perez in the 20 car, the black and silver machine. He was having problems, actually went into the pit. Well, he's still out there and battling for 8th with Kevin Lepage.
He sure is. Got a little body work hanging off that number 20 Camaro. It's kind of a ducktail job now after he backed it into the fence. Here goes Lepage, though, in the 09 car to retake that position. So I think Perez may be having a little problem, falling back now a little bit, and that's understandable. He hit that fence fairly hard.
And here's the fight for the 3rd place. Oh, and sideways goes 92 Peter Gibbons. The rear end comes around and just nailing him in that left rear corner. Was in 1 car of Tom Harrington. He was running in 4th. So this is definitely going to bring out a yellow and the cleanup crew.
Right, Steve. As Gibbons looks like he's going to get started again, but with some a little lighter car. He lost some of that quarter panel as Harrington nicked him as he came to a stop right in the middle of turn number 3. Here we see it again. That is the 92 car Gibbons down into that. That's a decreasing radius, slight tightening on that corner. Here he goes. Just gets it way sideways. Does a full 360. Here comes Harrington in the number 1 car, moving to the outside, obviously hard on the brakes, and just nicks him in the left rear corner there.
You know, Harrington fell for that old stock car adage. If you point at the spinning car, you won't hit him because he won't be there when you get there. Wrong on this instance.
Okay, here comes Peter Gibbons. He's surely flat-spotted a couple of tires. That is the number 1 car, Harrington. You can see the body work on the left front corner is damaged there. That's all fiberglass. These cars are basically 2-frame automobiles with fiberglass bodies, replica bodies on them. So shouldn't do a whole lot of damage to the tire. That's nice soft fiberglass as we're under caution here at Sanair.
Well, they may be fiberglass bodies, but the rules of all 3 organizations require these cars to look almost identical to the stock cars that they represent, and they have templates to check those bodies. And as Brock said earlier, underneath these bodies, some pretty sophisticated and very safe race car chassis. He took a look earlier at the roll bars.
Peek inside one of these stock cars, and all you see really is a maze of tubing, the roll cage. But there's a big difference between the old-fashioned cars and these new stock car connection automobiles. They are what are called perimeter frame cars. That means that the frame, i.e. this roll cage, this tubular chassis, runs the full width of the car, a minimum of 56 inches. As you can see, this whole roll cage section is almost as wide as the automobile. In the old days, these stock cars were built with very narrow roll cage structures, and it permitted the automobiles to be narrowed up and not look as stock as they might be. But now the new rules say make the cars as stock looking externally and also make the roll cage conform as much to the bodywork as possible. To do that, they're giving these guys, the cars with the so-called perimeter frames, a little bonus, 75 pounds lighter than the old-fashioned cars. So as we see this stock car connection mature and develop, all of the cars will turn into what are called perimeter frame automobiles. Remember that now. We're going to ask questions later.
Okay, I'll study up, Bronco. Well, we're still under caution. Here's the leaderboard. Ted Musgrave is number 1 in the number 97 car, followed by Harrington, Bobby Dotter, Bobby Ailes, and Peter Gibbons. Now, what has happened to Kenny Wallace? Well, while we were watching Peter Gibbons spinning in the 92 car, Wallace was having his own problems, and here we see him walking back to the pit area, having deserted the car that sat on the pole.
A tough break for Kenny because, of course, that will keep him out of the Molson 400 starting field next weekend, and that is where the big bucks are. Right now, though, Ted Musgrave in the number 97 Buick leads him behind that pace car, and I think we're up for a green restart.
We are indeed. It is Musgrave, the number 97 car, coming out of turn number 3 across the start-finish line for the first time under the restart, and there is one heck of a battle going on for the second position there as well. Car number 1, Tom Harrington, the blue and white machine from ASA, and one of his rivals in that same association, the Thunderbird, who we saw in the pits, now running a strong third, number 79, Bobby Dotter. Did he get the stagger figured out? It looks like it's handling much better, Brock.
Well, Steve, you know, Harrington, of course, has that flapping bodywork. Dotter, notice, runs a lot higher on this racetrack. He's running a higher groove than everybody, and whether that works, I don't know. It seems as if a low groove is the secret. There goes the number 92 Camaro, Peter Gibbons, diving underneath Bob Ailes in that 25 car to take over the 4 spot. Remember now, Ailes started way at the back, and Peter Gibbons spun, so those guys are hanging in there real good, Steve.
And also hanging in there is that number 1 car of Tom Harrington, the blue and white machine, staying down low. Bobby Dotter, now, I think Dotter would like to get down low, and the car's not allowing him to do that. The car's just a little bit loose, possibly, Brock.
Well, he's certainly not able to get by that number 1 car who bobbles. Harrington bobbles just a little bit coming off turn number 1, and that may have given, yes, Dotter sneaks by on the inside and the dogleg in the back part of this nearly 1 mile 3-corner racetrack at Sanair. So Dotter takes over the 2nd spot. In the meantime, Musgrave has disappeared in the first number 1 spot.
And the interesting thing about this racetrack is no 3 corners are alike. They're just totally different. And here we go, the 09 car you see there running in what appears to be 4th position. He is a couple of laps down.
Right, so the 2 cars, Bobby Dotter in the 2nd spot, right behind him, the number 1 blue and white Camaro of Harrington. That's where the battle is right now.
You know, the back section of this racetrack, when you first get here, all the drivers said, oh boy, that hadn't been here before. You can drive that flat out. Well, you can't. You've got to live coming into 2 and coming into 3, and there you see the last lap flag is out. There's the Thunderbird of Bobby Dotter running in the 2nd position, followed by the number 1 car of Tom Harrington.
Well, it looks as if unless Musgrave blows up with just a few feet left in this race, he's going to win it. Dotter, there comes Musgrave. Ted Musgrave out of Wisconsin, down the front straightaway, takes the checkered flag to win the 2nd qualifying race here. Now remember, that'll put him into the 7th starting spot in the big Molson 400. So here come Dotter and Harrington finishing in the 2nd and 3rd spot. Ted Musgrave on his cool-off lap. He wins his 2nd qualifier, and we're going to be right back with the Showdown of Champions. Back at Sanair Speedway outside Montreal, Quebec, where once again Ted Musgrave wins the 2nd qualifier. Dotter, Harrington, and Gibbons round out the top 4. Bob Ailes, Kurkowski, Lepage, and Harris are the guys that'll transfer to the Molson 400. Now it's Showdown of Champions time. Let's go to Steve.
No one has a better starting position, and no one knows his way around this Sanair track any better than ACT champion Claude Leclerc. And Claude, what is the toughest thing for a first-time driver here to learn about this tri-oval?
Oh, it's the first corner. It's very hard to find the best groove, and it's hard to pass somebody when you come in on the first corner. That's a very hard place.
Have a good ride and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go to Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, I'm with one of the great names in short track stock car racing. Bob Seneca is going to start on the outside of the front row, which got to be a pretty good place to start, Bob, in a 50-lap sprint like this.
It certainly is. You know, the draw for a 50-lapper is, I'd hate to be back in the middle right now. I got a lucky spot.
I would imagine this race car can get pretty wide in a one-groove corners like this track has.
Yes, I'm still trying to learn this racetrack. It's pretty strange. It's got a lot of wide straightaway and tight corners, and you do it 3 times every time you go around.
Bob, will brakes be a factor in a 50-lap race like this with everybody running as hard as they will be?
No, I think the brakes should be able to stand 50 laps. There'll be a lot of wear on the brakes, but I don't think they'll go away.
Okay. Well, best of luck. We'll be watching.
Thanks.
Steve?
Well, few came farther for this showdown of champions than did Mike Harmon, the Heart of Dixie car here. Mike, did you ever feel when you started racing these things you'd be this far north?
No, I sure didn't, but we're glad to be here. The people's been really nice, the track's good, and we're just looking forward to a good, safe race.
How's your French coming along this weekend?
Not too good.
Neither is mine. A little tough getting grits for breakfast, too. But tell me, you've got a good starting position here, but you've got some faster cars behind you. You know that.
We got some faster cars behind us. There's all good cars in this field, but it's really tough to pass here, and I think we got a good shot at it.
Okay, Brock.
Steve, I'm with a young man from just down over the border in New Hampshire. Dale Shaw is going to start outside second row, and considering that there are a bunch of tough guys all the way around you, it's got to be a pretty good spot to start in this sprint race.
Yeah, I really think it is. We're not really running up to the power right now, but the crew's really worked hard on the race car, and we're just going into this one hoping it'll be a little better than it was in the last practice.
Well, you just got to keep dialing it in. I think everybody's made a fresh start here at Santa. It's a tricky racetrack, and it's hard to set a car up for, I understand.
Yeah, we've always run good here before, but we're going so much faster and such a lighter car, and we're having a real hard time dealing with it. But they've done everything they can do for me for this particular race, so I guess it's up to me from here on out.
Well, we're counting on you. Good luck, Dale.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir. Steve?
Okay, thanks, Brock. And inside of row number 3 is the bright green machine, the familiar number 88 of Mike Eddy. And Mike, you're known as an aggressive guy. You like to run side by side with the competition through the turns, but can you do that here? It's a different racetrack.
Well, the racetrack's different, and it being the first time here, I'm not sure if we can, but I'm sure that later in the race we'll find out today whether it's possible to do. But right now you just gotta figure out the other drivers, because we don't race against these people all the time, so we ain't sure what's going to happen, and so the race ought to be real interesting.
A lot of people say it's tough to pass here. Where would you like to get that accomplished? Where do you feel most secure passing?
Well, it'll probably be coming off of the number 1 corner before the dog leg, where most of the passing will happen.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and have a good ride.
Thank you.
Okay, let's again go to Brock.
Well, Steve, I'm on one of the great stock car racing veterans, Jody Ridley, who, one thing I'll bet, it's a brand new car, but he's run a whole bunch of tri-ovals, and that probably gives you a little bit of help here, right, Jody?
Well, it should, but, you know, this is a little bit different. It's flat and whatever, and I'm having a hard time getting this thing down, but we gained on it some this morning. We got 50 more laps a day, and, you know, maybe when I get this thing in today, I can kind of figure out what I want to do for Sunday's race.
Okay, well, that'll be a thriller next week. We're looking forward to watching you run with a brand new, fresh automobile.
Well, yeah, we're a little bit behind getting here, and we're still building. I think we've run wide open since we got here, and, you know, hopefully we'll get this thing squared away. You know, the paint's still wet on the numbers and everything else, so.
Well, good luck.
Working on it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Best. Steve?
Well, he may be back on the inside of row number 6, Brock, but in car number 52 is Butch Miller, and we know from our stopwatches in practice, this is the quickest car of them all. You have been getting around here quicker than anybody else.
Well, I seem to have adapted to the track pretty well, but, you know, there's still a lot of time left in this car. I'm still slower than the car is.
How will you go about picking off these guys up front of you that you know are slower?
You've got to be careful. You know, I don't know these guys, and they don't know me, so I don't know. I'm just going to have to be very careful. I've got to make sure the Seneca doesn't run away, and just see what happens.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Brock?
Well, Steve, I'm with the number 31 car, and Steve Griffin, who's all the way up here from Gadsden, Alabama, and I don't think you got the heater on in here today, Steve, but it's got to be a little bit different situation for you.
Oh, it is. We had never really run one of these three-turn racetracks, so it is a little different racetrack, but we're feeling pretty comfortable with the car, and I think we'll be all right for the race.
Well, we'll sure be watching you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Steve?
As Brock explained earlier, all the hot shoes like Robbie Crouch here in the 48 car that represent ATC are all running brand new cars. They're lighter and quite a bit different. What do you think so far of these cars, Robbie?
Well, we like them. It's going to take a little time to get used to it, but my car's working great this weekend. We've got about 3 races on it this year, and this is the best by far it's run. So a little experience with the cars and do a little work with them, and I think we're really going to like them.
Can you really feel that difference in weight?
Well, I think that you know you're going quicker with these cars, but I'm not so sure it's the weight as much as it is. The body's a lot cleaner, and the thing gets through the air a lot better. And, you know, 9-to-1 engines, I heard a lot about them through the years, and I thought they were a little down on power, but the things make some power, and we're running real good.
Have a safe ride.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Brock?
Steve, there isn't a stock car racing fan in the world that doesn't recognize this car or this man. This is Dick Trickle in the famous number 99 Silver Bullet, and he's starting way back here in 14th spot. Now, there's a bunch of killers up front here, tough guys he's raced against, and only 50 laps to get by him. Dick, how do you handle that?
Well, this is our first race at this track, so first we're going to have to feel it out. We haven't done any really running side by side. The top 5 in points from each sanctioning body are in the race, and they're all in front of me, so they're all quick runners. I kind of will go by feeling and hope that I can get up to the front with it, but we'll have to feel it out. This is similar to a Busch Clash race. You got short laps to do a lot in, and my starting position is definitely against me.
Well, that's because you're a high points man and you're kind of starting scratch in reverse order, but we'll watch you. We know you're going to move up.
Now, this is a brand new car here, Coors Light Silver Bullet. And, you know, I haven't raced yet, but in practice and qualifying, we shot outside pole in one race, so we should be in pretty good shape.
Good luck.
What a wonderful mix of accents. The French Canadians, the New Englanders, the guys from down south, they've come from all over for this showdown of champions. We'll have it for you when we come back.
Do they drive fast in Quebec? Well, yeah, they do, but don't let that sign fool you. That's kilometers, about 54 miles an hour. And they run on marked cars, and yes, they got radar, the classic picture taker just like in the United States. And speaking of pictures, we got a picture taker of our own, Butch Miller, with our in-car camera. 1 of 2 in this field, Steve.
That's right, and where better to put your camera than on the pole position. And number 2 is running with this man, Claude Leclerc, who will be starting on the point inside that front row.
So we've got 2 in-car cameras that'll be recording the action as we watch the pace car head around this nearly 1 mile tri-oval, 0.89 miles, 3 corners. There you see the number 11 Camaro of Claude Leclerc on the point. Right next to him, that number 84 car of Bob Seneker, who in fact, Steve, has won more ASA races than anybody else.
There you see Beaver Dragon's name. The last time he raced here, the steering wheel came off in his hands. That caused a pretty interesting incident, as you might imagine.
Oh, boy.
And there's Robbie Crouch. You know, when I was talking to Robbie Rock, I said ATC instead of ACT. I've been doing too many motorcycle races. I think, I'll tell you what, I'm going to call it ACT from now on, the American Canadian Tour, just like they do.
Oh, I think that's a good idea. It'll make him a lot happier. As we watch Butch Miller's gloved hand on his steering wheel out the windshield. Remember now, he is one of 6 ASA drivers. There are 6 ACT drivers and 6 All-Pro drivers. All here. The field, though, Steve, has been set by draw. So that's why Miller, who actually had the quick qualifying time in practice, is starting in the middle of the pack.
And each of the 3 associations has sent their top 5 points earners from last season. Also, each association was able to choose a wild card machine. And as you said, they just drew out of the hat for the position on the grid. And here we look to the front windshield of Claude Leclerc. He is on the pole as he comes down out of turn number 3. And I believe we're going to get a green flag, Brock.
It's out, Steve. 18 of the fastest short track drivers in the world on the throttle down into turn number 1. And from the outside pole, the number 84 blue and gray Buick of Bob Seneker goes wide to take the lead from Leclerc.
Leclerc slides into the second spot, the 11 car. And what a fight for the third position. Number 24, Mike Harmon. He's in the dark colored machine. The green car, that's 88 perennial champion Mike Eddy. Behind him is Dale Shaw, number 60. All that is for third. And here comes Eddy right up on the fiberglass rear bumper of Mike Harmon.
Well, Eddy, one of the very best, a 4-time ASA champion. And Steve, here is Butch Miller trying to get underneath Jody Ridley in that brand new blue Thunderbird. And Jody shuts the door on him in turn number 1.
And as Butch Miller thunders down into turn number 2, just behind Jody Ridley, he is running in the 10th position. And here's our leaders coming into turn number 3. Bob Seneker, the Buick, still just in front of the red 11 car of Claude Leclerc. Mike Eddy, the distinctive green number 88 in the 3rd position. This could be an incredible 50 laps, Brock.
It is, and there's Leclerc still holding on to that second spot. Seneker up in front of him as they come off turn number 1. And here comes Eddy down the short chute in that green 88, challenging Leclerc for the second spot. LeClaire holds him up ahead. Turn number 3. Seneca, if he had brake lights, you'd see him right there because they got to use him hard in this tight corner.
Now, Eddie is known as a guy that likes to kind of muscle his way through a field. He's a very physical driver. He likes running on the inside, the outside, the middle, wherever he can make a move. This racetrack, as I said before, has got 3 distinctively different corners. You've got to remember not only where you're going, but where you are at all times. It'll be interesting to see if Eddie's style will work here.
Well, remember now, Claude is the only guy that has run here before. There is the race for 10th. Butch Miller, the 52 car, the number 48 car of Robbie Crouch, blue and white Buick. Both very quick runners, but right now stuck mid-pack.
And so far, Butch Miller, we're riding with him right now, is not making the kind of progress through the field we might have expected.
No, you're right, Steve. And remember, he said he was worried about Seneca breaking out from the field. And right now, that's exactly what's happened.
Well, there in the white 52 car is Butch Miller. He may have been the quickest in time, Charles, but I tell you, he is struggling right now. He has tried Jody Ridley high, he has tried him low, and Miller appears to be fighting that car.
Well, Jody Ridley, one of the very finest short track drivers in the history of the sport, so he'll be chomping at 5. As we watch the leader, Seneca, with a little bit of a lead. Mike Eddy challenging LeClaire into the dogleg and takes over second place. As we watch the in-car camera of Claude Leclerc, now that green car is in front of him. That's Mike Eddy, and right in front of him, Bob Seneca leading this 50-lap shootout.
And you know, Brock, from all associations are battling out there. Look at this. You've got Beaver Dragon from ACT. You've got Jody Ridley from All Pro, Steve Grissom from All Pro, and this man, Butch Miller, from the ASA. Well, I'll tell you, this is exactly what they hoped from this kind of format.
It sure is. When we watch Butch Miller still chasing Jody Ridley in that blue Thunderbird. And look at this. On the inside, that is Steve Grissom in the number 31 car who snuck inside Miller.
And here's our leaders. We just saw there is Seneca in the blue car. Mike Eddy right behind him. Eddy making some progress on Bob Seneca. Claude Leclerc, well, he has fallen back a few car lengths. The real fight is up front there. The blue car and the green car in the Showdown of Champions.
Right. Seneca and Eddy, 2 of the very top runners in ASA. Both former champions. Eddy 4-time. Seneca, as I said, has won more SA races than anybody in the history of that association. So these guys sure know how to set up a race car.
You know, I talked to Eddy earlier, and he said he liked the path coming out of turn number 1. Let's see if he tries to make a move here. He got his earlier passing done over Claude Leclerc going into the dogleg.
And now, Steve, this little mob of automobiles, they're from the 7th to the 12th position. Butch Miller is still back there, but the big news is that 99 car, that's Dick Trickle. He has moved up through the pack to pass Miller. Miller's still struggling. The quick qualifier here, but he's not making much headway right now.
No, he's not, Brock, and there is that 99 dark blue and silver car of Dick Trickle just in front of Butch Miller. Miller in that 52 car wondering how on earth he's going to get around this tri-oval and make some progress. This is one of the most technically difficult tracks you can drive in North America, the tri-oval here at Sanair.
At Sanair Superspeedway in Quebec, where we watch Bob Seneca lead the All-American Showdown of Champions. I'm Brock Yates along with Steve Evans, and Steve, Seneca just left off the front row and has taken command of this 50-lap race.
That's right, Brock, and the driver who has worked the hardest to gain his position is Mike Eddy. He's come up at that second spot, but look at all this action. Everywhere there's a position, there's a battle for it. This is just incredible. And here is Butch Miller. He is really not making any progress. He's in that 11th spot. We expected him to move up. We've talked about that. He's tried running high, he's tried running low, and just can't find his way around here.
And to make matters worse, one of the best drivers in the business, of course, Miller is as well, but he's fighting it out with Dick Trickle in the number 99 car right in front of him. That is Beaver Dragon in the 91, Trickle in the 99, Miller in the white 52, and Robbie Crouch, an ACT champion in the 48 Buick. All a cluster of cars, all experienced short track drivers, in fact, some of the best in the nation.
Look at this, Butch Miller, you're riding with him. He's trying to get inside Dick Trickle. They come out of turn number 3. Miller has got the line, but Trickle slams the door. Uh-oh, Miller coming back again as they head down towards the dogleg.
Right, Beaver Dragon in the 91 car falls away, first to Trickle and then to Miller. So Miller moves up a spot, as does Trickle, but they've got a long way to go because Seneca leads this race by a big margin. There is turn number 3, really tricky little decreasing radius corner, banked only about 5 degrees. pleased as we watch Trickle dive in front of number 52, Butch Miller, as they go into turn number 1.
Now, the beautiful blue car, the 98 Thunderbird, that is Jody Ridley. He is running in the 7th position. Now, Miller gets around Trickle, and he is now just behind the car of Mike Harmon.
So what a battle with a bunch of champions. There goes Miller, finally getting by the number 24, that black car of Mike Harmon, to move him up into the 8th spot. Now, he's got a little running room, Steve, so that may afford him the opportunity to move in on Jody Ridley as we watch the 99 car of Dick Trickle, also right in that struggle. Those 4 cars have been bunched together all day.
But you know, it's like Butch Miller finally said, I've got it. I've figured it out. All of a sudden, he just drives away from Trickle, and if he can get Ridley as authoritatively as he did Trickle, then he has mastered Sanair finally. But he may have wasted too many laps doing it.
Well, he's still way back in 8th spot. He's got a long way to go, over a half a lap, which in a short track, in a short race, 50 laps like this, is a long way. But now he's moving in on Jody Ridley. Up ahead, the dog leg, just a little lift on the throttle here, no real brake, as Ridley takes that high line coming off the dog leg. Right behind him, the Camaro of Butch Miller, the fastest car in qualifying, but still stuck in the middle of the pack.
And here they come down this 900-foot front straightaway, and who has the most muscle, the Thunderbird or the Chevrolet? It is Butch Miller in the 52 Camaro. He has now moved into the 7th position, and he is on a tear now, Brock. Boy, it's fun right with him now.
Well, more important, Steve, he's got a clear track ahead of him. He's clear of those guys that have been kind of holding him up. Trickle, Beaver Dragon, Jody Ridley, all of them fighting hard for that position. But now Miller's got himself a clear field and can set his sights on this car, that red and white number 31 Buick of Steve Grissom, currently riding in the 6th spot. So we'll see if Butch Miller can make up any time on these guys.
And a good fight going on just ahead of Miller. 31 Steve Grissom and 60 Dale Shaw. They are fighting for that 5th spot, but closing in is 52 Miller. Now he's able to run down low now, Brock. If you can push him high, he'll make the pass.
Well, clearly Grissom and Shaw are fighting each other, which tends to slow the cars up a little bit. And as we said earlier, Miller, a clear racetrack ahead of him, so he's able to just pull up behind those guys, and perhaps while those two guys are distracted with each other, Miller will drive right by.
All right, here comes Miller on the inside. That's Grissom in the red car on the outside. And no, he cannot do it here. He's going to have to be a little more patient. Wait for yet another opening. He may get it here again, Brock.
Right.
He's trying to stay down low. He knows that's the quick way around.
Well, that is the number 60 car of Dale Shaw, now being challenged by Butch Miller in that white number 52 Camaro. And that is the race right now for the 6th spot here at Sanair. And to repeat one more time, that white number 52 car, the fastest car in qualifying and theoretically the quickest car in the racetrack. But right now, he has Dale Shaw in that red 60 to get by, which he succeeds in doing.
That's right. Shaw got a little bit high coming out of turn number 3, down the front straight into turn 1. Bombs Butch Miller in that 52 car. There's no question right now he is the quickest car out on that racetrack. Does he have enough time, enough laps to catch the leader? Well, we won't know for some time. In fact, here is the battle, the 48 car and the 98 machine. That is the fight for the 9th position. Robbie Crouch and Jody Ridley. And you know, they're probably having fun. I doubt that these two guys have ever raced together before. One from ACT, one from All Pro, one from the Northeast, one from way down south. And look at Ridley give him a little tap, Southern style.
Yeah, but does he get by? He goes low. Yes, he does. I think he's got the line going into turn number 1. Jody will try it, but Crouch doesn't give way a bit. Takes the high side, but will probably lose it just because Ridley has got the good line. As they head down into the tri-oval on the back part of the racetrack, Robbie Crouch comes right by him.
You know, the difference there looked like Ridley got on the brakes because he was down low. Crouch had the momentum and just kind of feathered the throttle and made that move on the outside work.
Well, they say this is a one-groove racetrack, but don't listen to Robbie Crouch and Jody Ridley tell you that, because these guys are running 2 grooves. But slow but sure, Jody stayed down low. He persisted and finally moved past Robbie.
And while we were watching that, look at this. It is Butch Miller. He is past Steve Grissom and now is pulling up on the man who originally sat on the pole, Claude Leclerc. And here we are in Leclerc's car, one of the finest of the French-Canadian drivers, been doing it many, many years. And he knows, you can bet, that behind him comes Butch Miller. Miller, who wasted a number of laps apparently trying to figure out this course or having some kind of problem, is now putting on quite a driving exhibition, Brock.
Well, he's moved past Leclerc right there down into turn number 3. There he you see the white car of Miller, and he is just smoked past Claude. And there goes Steve Grissom in the number 31 Buick, moving past Claude as well. So Leclerc faltering here in the later stages of this race as both Grissom and Butch Miller move by him.
Well, it would appear now that Claude Leclerc, as we are, is now a spectator as far as the Butch Miller show is concerned. Miller, 2 cars way up there ahead of him. Let's see if Butch can make up more ground when we come back.
That's the mighty St. Lawrence River, part of the St. Lawrence Seaway, which makes Montreal one of the great seaports of the world. Also a former site of the Olympics, a former site of the World's Fair, and a Formula One Grand Prix race. But right now, we're down the road a piece at Sanair Superspeedway, where the masters of the short track are going at it. Steve?
Well, Brock, this is the battle for 6. We see Dick Trickle, the dark blue and silver number 99 car, trying to stick his nose under the rear bumper of the number 60 machine, Dale Shaw. Again, that's the battle for 6. Here's how the top line stand. Bob Seneker leading it as he has from early on. Mike Eddy done a good job running in second place. We spent a lot of time watching Butch Miller move up to the pack, but there's a lot of great races, including Shaw and Trickle. They just keep hammering on each other. And look at Trickle. He's got to tread on the outside.
He'll try Shaw both sides. Maybe he'll try to get him to move out a little bit and then duck down underneath as they come off that. Look at this, how wide they are in that dog leg on the back part of the racetrack. Look at this, Trickle tries the high side off turn number 3, Steve. Can he make that work? We haven't seen anybody pass there yet today.
Well, I think this trial was surprising a lot of these drivers. They just assumed it'd be a one-group racetrack. Now, Trickle got way high. You can't make 2 groups getting that high, Dick.
He about put himself a Sanair stripe on the right side of that car as he came off turn number 1.
And here is the leader just behind the number 51 car. That is the leader, Bob Seneker. That is Daniel Keene in front of him. He is a lap down, but this is where it gets tricky because Seneker has been up there causing a lot of traffic and doing it ably.
You know, statistically, Steve, they say that Seneker wins 1 race out of every 3 he starts.
And no one knows that more than Howard Thomas, who's a big part of that winning formula. The crew chief for number 84, Bob Seneker, he nods his approval as they thunder down that 900-foot front straightaway. That's your leader, the number 84 car.
Steve, you don't think short track racing is lucrative? Seneker has won 58 feature wins in ASA and over $500,000 in prize money, as has Dick Trickle. Over $500,000 apiece. Not too bad.
That's right. It's provided a nice living for many of these guys, including number 99, Dick Trickle. And if Trickle expects to make a little more money here today, he's got to get around that 60 car of Dale Shaw. He's been back there behind Shaw for a couple of laps now, and the higher you finish, the more money you make. And when you race to feed your family, that becomes real critical. Here's Trickle. He's going to try maybe on the high side again. It didn't work last time primarily because he got way too high coming out of turn number 1. He won't make that mistake again.
Into a little traffic as Dale Shaw continues to hold off the old master, Dick Trickle. Runs about 85 short track races a year on the road out of Wisconsin, almost around the full calendar. Just never quits.
And as we talked last year in Cincinnati, Dick Trickle names all his cars Miss Kitty and a number of different names. This car is Lacey. It's the first time it's been out, and that's the name, L-A-C-Y, lettered on the back of the car.
Now he moves underneath Shaw, and I think he's going to take him. Yes, coming out of turn number 1, Dick Trickle takes over that number 6 spot from Dale Shaw.
And again, we see a battle between 2 members of, not rival, but different geographical associations. Dick Trickle out of the Midwest, Wisconsin, ASA. The 60 car, Dale Shaw. He is one of the ACT cars from this area. And all in all, these drivers have been very evenly matched, Brock.
They have, Steve, although right now we've got 3 ASA stars leading this thing. Seneker, Mike Eddy in the number 88 green car right there, and right behind him, Butch Miller in the 52 Camaro. So it is Seneker right here moving through traffic who has dominated this race right from the green flag.
Did you see that little bit of flame out of the 88 exhaust pipes? A gas-burning carbureted stock car motor shouldn't do that. That can only mean there's some raw fuel coming out of that engine, so it might be missing a cylinder. It's got some kind of a problem to do that, Brock.
Right, Steve, and it may very well be that he's just unable to move up on this number 84, the Bluebird, they call him. Bob Seneker leads it through traffic, but I'll tell you what, if he's only running on 7, imagine what he'd do with 8, because Mike Eddy is right in the hunt. And there's your 3rd place car, Butch Miller, still a ways back from the leader. There he is, the number 84 blue and gray car of Bob Seneker. There's Miller, 3rd place. Done a super job. Really had a tough struggle to get up as far as he has. Miller's been running with the ASA for over 10 years. Last year he finished third in the point standings behind Mark Martin and Dick Trickle, and has been showing real strength already this season. And now let's go to Steve.
No one out on that racetrack is going any quicker than Butch Miller. From the back of the pack up to third. But Kevin, does he have enough time?
I'm afraid not. Starting in the back like we did, we're just not going to be able to close in on these guys. There's not enough laps left. He's running over a second faster than they are, but I'm afraid unless there's a yellow, it's not going to happen.
Well, this crew would never wish anyone any ill will, but boy, would they like to see a yellow flag about now, right?
We sure would like to win this race.
As Mike Eddy continues to hold down that second spot just in front of Butch Miller in that white number 52 car. And the laps continue to unreal here at Sanair, Steve. And as Kevin Hamlin told you, he's not a lot of time left.
They are on the next to the last lap. And let's see again if there's some fire out of the exhaust of the 88 car, Mike Eddy. Yes, there it is. So Butch Miller will certainly have a performance advantage here that he's got to outdrive Eddy to boot.
Okay, into the dog leg, just lifting the throttle ever so slightly as those two cars slide off that corner and down toward the last corner. Bob Seneker coming off turn number 3. He'll get the white flag. That is the final lap here at Sanair for that man.
Seneca running comfortably in front, but look at this fight on the last lap. The second place finisher, will it be Mike Eddy, the number 88 car? Will it be Butch Miller, who struggled early on and now has moved up from the back to third place? Eddy has the good line. He's not about to give it up. Miller's only chance is to go high. He's done so. He pulls up right on the numbers of Mike Eddy going to turn number 3. They come down to the stripe. Bob Seneker wins at $10,000, and it is Mike Eddy in the second position, a little over a car length. Butch Miller, what a drive, what a thrill he gave us today in the Showdown of Champions. But the ultimate victory goes to the driver of number 84, Bob Seneker. What a drive, what a race car. We'll be back.
Well, you just couldn't ask for 50 better short track laps of racing than we just saw here at Sanair as Bob Seneker bests his old ASA rivals Mike Eddy and Butch Miller. Let's go to Steve with a winner.
Well, for the Showdown of Champions, this man, Bob Seneker, brought all his guns. You just can't do any better than to lead every single lap of the race.
If you got to do it, that's the way to do it, I guess.
Indeed, and an all-green race. I don't think anybody thought that had happened with a lot of new drivers on this racetrack for the first time. It was just clean as it could be.
I was really surprised that there was no trouble out there. It got a little slippery at the end. I think there was a little oil on the track or something, but still was clean.
Was your car running as good as it appeared to be? Flawless, in fact?
No problem with it at all, just smooth as silk.
Absolutely nothing.
No problem.
Well, you're going to make a nice bank deposit, I know that, over $10,000. Congratulations.
Thank you much.
Okay, let's go to Brock with second place.
Steve, I'm with Mike Eddy, who made a fantastic run at Seneker early in the going. Green flag dropped, and you moved right up through the field to get on his bumper, and then you just kind of hung back there a little bit.
Well, I had a good run going there at the start, and about 2 laps into the race, the car started to develop on a high RPM miss or blubber, whatever you wanted to call it, about the flag man, and about halfway down the back chute it would start missing real bad. So I was just hoping that it wouldn't get no worse, and I thought I could hang on to second if it didn't get no worse, which it did, but I never was a threat to Bob.
Then all of a sudden that man Miller started to show up in your rearview mirror at the end, huh?
Yeah, I could see him coming there with the last lap to go, and so I figured I'd just keep it on the bottom and let him try the long way around.
Yeah, it's a hard, it's a one-groove racetrack in these in 1 and 3, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to pass somebody in 1 lap here. You gotta work on him quite a while to get around him.
Especially you. Well, congratulations on a good run in second place, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay. And now let's go to Steve with Butch Miller.
Okay, thank you, Brock. Seneker put on a heck of a show, and certainly Mike Eddy was thrilling to watch, but this man, what a march, came from way in the back. Butch Miller, I thought out of that final turn you maybe had second place.
Well, our car had a little bit too much push in it. And, you know, I couldn't stick on the outside. I had to put it right on the bumps in order to turn the corner well. But the beginning of the race really goofed me up. I tried the outside lane, and the outside lane went backwards. So I tried the inside lane, and the inside lane went backwards. And next thing I knew, I couldn't see anybody in front of me. They were all gone. In fact, I was kind of looking for them in the mirror.
I was talking to your crew, and, you know, you couldn't buy a yellow flag when you needed it.
No, you never can, you know. But if you've got a good lead, you know, like if I was sitting in Seneca's seat, we'd have had 30 yellows.
No, indeed. Okay, well, thanks again for a great show, and we will see you next week in the Molson 400.
Well, thank you much.
Now, what a show that's going to be. All these hot shots from the short tracks of these three associations will be here at San Air for the Molson 400.
Be sure to join myself, Steve Evans, and Brock Yates for that sensational race next week. So long from Montreal.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the Style Auto World Championship Team, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashions. Style Auto, the champion's choice for the style of your life. The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.